canceled car project may have quietly built the hardware foundation for Apple's AI future. Welcome to the Automated Daily, Tech News Edition, the podcast created by generative AI. It's July 14th, 2026. I'm Trend Teller. Today we're looking at how AI is reshaping work, the web, and even inflation, along with major moves in Apple, Europe, space, energy, and brain science. This episode is brought to you by Gamma. Gamma lets you effortlessly use AI to design for presentations, websites, and more. Find the link in the episode notes. Let's start with the bigger AI picture, because several influential voices are now describing the same shift from different angles. Reddit's creator Antonio Antirez says programmers should spend less time reading generated code line by line and more time shaping the design, testing outcomes, and deciding what the software should do next. An ICML keynote made a similar point, arguing that AI is changing work in stages, and that the real transformation comes when organizations reorganize around these tools, not when a model posts a flashy benchmark. That does not mean the labor question is overblown. More than 200 economists, researchers, and tech leaders have signed an open letter warning that AI could disrupt employment on a scale that governments are not ready for. So the emerging consensus is not that jobs vanish tomorrow, but that human value is moving upward. Less routine execution, more supervision, evaluation, and decision-making. And for people outside traditional engineering, that may actually open the door to building more things themselves instead of just consuming them. There is also a more tangible cost to the AI boom: infrastructure. The rapid buildout of AI data centers is pushing up demand for semiconductors, computing equipment, and electricity, and economists say some of that pressure is already showing up in electronics prices and utility bills. It may not be enough to redefine the whole economy on its own, but it is enough that central banks are watching whether AI demand becomes one more reason inflation stays stubborn. Apple had one of the more interesting AI backstories today. According to a new report, the company's abandoned self-driving car program helped drive the development of the neural engine, which is now central to Apple's on-device AI strategy. That matters because a fresh benchmark says Apple's new speech analyzer transcription system is now both more accurate and much faster than Whisper on Apple hardware, giving developers a clear reason to switch. Add in the first public beta of iOS 27 with a more capable Siri and a broader push into practical on-device features, and Apple's hardware-first AI plan is starting to look more coherent than its critics expected. Another trend worth watching is the way the web itself is being reshaped for AI. WorkOS of its documentation can now expose structured tools directly to AI agents, instead of forcing them to scrape pages and guess what each button or section means. And in a separate pilot, Cloudflare and OpenAI are testing whether network-level freshness signals can help AI search systems figure out when a page has truly changed. Put together, the message is pretty clear. The next version of the web may not just be readable by machines, it may actively define how machines are supposed to interact with it.
In Europe, online safety is moving toward a harder regulatory line. Ursula von der Leyen says the European Commission will prepare a draft law to restrict children's access to social media, following expert recommendations for stronger protections around under 13 users and services built around addictive engagement patterns. The striking part is that Brussels is no longer only asking platforms to behave better, it is increasingly asking whether some of these systems should be allowed to reach young children at all. Over to space, SpaceX is preparing Starship's next test flight, and this one could be more meaningful than the usual incremental update. The company plans to fly real Starlink satellites in the payload bay for the first time, while also collecting more data on heat shield performance and engine relight in space. If the mission goes well, it moves Starship closer to the jobs that matter most: large payload launches, orbital refueling, and eventually lunar missions. On the energy side, General Fusion has debuted on the public markets through a SPAC merger, making it one of the first pure-play fusion companies that ordinary investors can track directly. Fusion is still a long game, and nobody should confuse a public listing with a scientific breakthrough. But the timing is telling. As AI, electrification, and industrial growth all drive demand for power, the market is becoming much more interested in technologies that promise clean electricity at very large scale. And finally, two stories about Europe and science. European allies meeting in Paris agreed to deepen cooperation on a new anti-ballistic missile defense effort aimed at helping Ukraine and reducing long-term reliance on the United States. At the same time, researchers at IIT Madras unveiled an exceptionally detailed 3D atlas of the human brainstem, linking MRI views to cellular anatomy across different ages. One story is about defending critical infrastructure in a dangerous moment. The other is about building a reference map for some of the most essential functions in the human body. Different fields, same theme. Better systems depend on better visibility. Thanks to our sponsor, CrispCall. CrispCall provides agentic cloud telephony for modern businesses. Find the link in the episode notes. That's the briefing for July 14th, 2026. If you want a sharper daily read on the ideas moving tech forward and sometimes sideways, come back tomorrow. I'm Trent Teller, and this was the Automated Daily, Tech News Edition.